Austin.
We have Matt joining us again. He's kind of becoming a regular on the show. We love this. Uh, Before we get into the football talk, Matt, do you have a baseball team? Do you like?
Yeah, my mom's side of the family, and I was actually born in Boston, Massachusetts, so I grew up a Red Sox fan.
Cool. So we can hate the Yankees together.
Hate the
We can
Yankees
all hate
together?
the Yankees. Hey, we all
Yes,
hate the Raiders. Might as well hate the Yankees too.
There we go.
yes, sir. Well, happy opening day eve to everybody who celebrates baseball. I know we're excited about tomorrow. The Royals first pitch 3:10 tomorrow, and then we live in St. Louis, so obviously the Cardinals play at 3:15. Cubs are
9-10.
nine
It's
ten.
game 3 for them though.
That's true.
So
That's true. So it's like mini opening day
yeah.
again for the Cubs. So we just thought we'd give a shout out to baseball fans and give some appreciation because tomorrow's a pretty fun day with all the activities that they got going on. I know they do a huge thing here in St. Louis. I have some coworkers who will be at Ballpark Village to get ready for that. So let's jump into this. So I know last week we had Micah on, and he's Chi-Town Blitz, 6-man blitz, and he was really excited about kind of the direction the Bears were going. So you're a football fan. You love football. It's kind of just like all of us. What would you give as far as like the Bears grade for their off season and what the Bears have been able to do?
I would give him an A. I mean, I like what Ben Johnson has done, and you kind of look at his resume when he was an offensive coordinator, and anytime he was an offensive coordinator, his offenses have finished in the top three. So it's impressive what he's able to do. And I think he got in there and he went right to work. He addressed that offensive line. He rebuilt that entire offensive line. So, now you can actually really gauge Caleb Williams because last season I don't think he was given a fair shot. His offensive line was terrible. So now that he actually has a solid foundation, now we can actually see like, all right, was it Caleb last year or was he just failed by the system that he was in? So I think Ben Johnson is going to turn that organization around.
And I know Micah made the prediction that the Bears right off the bat were going to sweep the Packers next year. Are you on board with saying the Bears are going to be better than the Packers?
I, I'm I feel like this is going to be another one where no matter what I say I'm going to be wrong. But I feel like they're gonna I feel like they're gonna split the series, but they're gonna do it in each other's turf. So I think the Packers are gonna win in Chicago, and Chicago's gonna go into Green Bay and beat them there.
There you go, Micah. Hopefully, you hear this, you understand. We're still excited about the Bears, and even if they weren't even if they weren't to sweep the Packers, that doesn't mean it would be a failed season on their part. We'll dive into the Bears here again later when we dive into running back talk. So I posted a couple things on Instagram yesterday. The first one was Bucky Brooks put out his top 5 quarterback prospect list. And I'll just read through the top 5, starting with number 1, Shedeur Sanders. Number 2, Cam Ward. Number 3 was Jackson Dart. Number 4, Jalen Milrow. And number 5 was Kyle McCord. And I posted a question. It simply said, "Do you agree with this top 5?" Because we don't. And we were going to explain why we don't agree with this top 5. Let's read through. So our friends Chopping Lines on Instagram said they actually agree with Sanders over Ward, but so low on Milrow. And then Three Guys, Six Balls, NFL Podcast, our friends there. So they had an unpopular opinion, but they are a Dart fan. I think in just the chats that I've had with those guys, they're kind of on the same board that we are with Jackson Dart, and we're hoping to get those guys on here in the next couple of weeks as we get closer to the draft to maybe get their breakdown more. Then our friends at NFL Playmakers say Ward and Sanders are both pro ready. I do agree, but I also feel like system's going to matter for this. And then Drew Coach Sports Talk, they're going to be on with us next week. They said they kind of were curious as to why Sanders was over Ward. Um, and then our friend who was on a couple weeks ago, Arlen, Shador over Ward and Dart, LOL. So I think what we're and then Kingdoms Chiefs 15, they said Cam Ward clears. So again, I think the consensus here is I don't think a lot of people agree with that Shador Sanders is number 1, and I tend to agree with this. I'll open this up to you guys. Matt, we'll start with you. Kind of give us your thoughts. It's not that Bucky Brooks isn't, but he's a well-known guy actually, and he's very smart at what he does. But again, that's
Well,
the beautiful thing of sports is we don't have to agree with everything, and I just don't agree with this list.
yeah, I was just gonna say that's what makes. I think this proves how difficult this quarterback class is, right? There's no runaway winner. I don't want to say you lack talent, right? Because I mean, I feel like when I say that, they're all way better than me. But just from previous year standpoint, it's a little tougher. So I think literally everyone just so all over the board. I think that proves how hard this quarterback class is.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And again, I said it earlier in the show. No matter what we say, we're all going to be wrong no matter what. But hey, that's the beauty of sports, and everyone has their own opinion. And I took some flack if you guys saw the whole Joe Burrow over Lamar thing. I took a lot of flack for that. Um, but not to get off topic, I would take. I agree with you guys. I like Cam Ward over Shadur. Not taking away anyone's talent. I think everyone's talent, that whole class is still talented. I just don't think they're on, we're all kind of grading them on the same level we graded last year's class,
Yeah,
with JJ McCarthy, Bo Nix, Jaden Daniels, that whole class. We're kind of like measuring them off of what we saw last year. But Cam Ward, I think he's just a little bit more locked in. I think he's more focused on the goal, and that's performing at a top tier level as a rookie and in, the highest league there is. Shadur, not saying he doesn't have that drive, but I feel like the vibes he gives me is he's more focused with the media. He's going back and forth with what the media is saying about him. And anyone who's ever been on my page and seen my, the shows I've gone with you guys, I hate distractions. Distractions in the locker room kills a team, and I hate it, can't stand it. And when you go back and forth with the media like that, and bringing his dad, getting his dad involved, whether his dad is doing it on his own or he's going to his dad for advice, but like it gets weak to the media and you lose that focus. So if I'm going from a drive standpoint and more like want and desire to like play in the league standpoint, I'm going to take Cam Ward. I'm going to take Cam Ward number one. I would put Shadur number two, and honestly, I'd put Dylan Gabriel at number five. I think the other two are fine where they are, but I think Dylan Gabriel is, he's getting overlooked. So
yeah, and I think you were spot on with Sanders. The downfall of where he's projected to go, right? I think he'd do okay if he went to a strong locker room, a stable organization. That's not really what you have at the top of the drafts, and it's to the point of what you said. He's going to need somebody who's not afraid to let him know, like, hey, focus on football. We'll worry about the media when we need to worry about the media, but let's get to football. So I think if he finds a way to get to just a good locker room, it could end up being a really good steal. And we've said it plenty of times, right? System matters. Well, that system matters for him, but it also matters a little bit to make sure you have a kind of good locker room, good coach, strong organization. So yeah, I'm spot on with your Sanders one for sure.
And I don't like Shador in the top two. I don't. I do. I will lean Cam Ward one right now, but Jackson Dart's going to be that quiet killer. I think he's Bo Nix this year. I think he's Bo Nix in this draft. I think he's going to get put into that good system, the right system. And honestly, I think if Pittsburgh gets close enough, Pittsburgh may actually end up trading up for this guy, especially if they miss out on Aaron Rodgers. And even if they were to get Aaron Rodgers, they still might. Um, but I don't like Kyle McCord either in the top five. Dylan Gabriel's actually he's kind of forgotten. Um,
It's a small lefty, right? Like
yeah, it
doesn't fit
is.
the
yeah,
mold.
The one I was gonna say was I know Quinn Ewers kind of gets a bad rap, but I do still think he could end up being maybe a good quarterback. Again, this is going to be pure on like he's got to fit right. Like it's got to be the exact system that is. I know he had some pretty bad throws at his pro day yesterday, but he also made some really good throws. And I don't know if it was because Arch was also throwing, and maybe he was a little nervous about that. But I still would put Quinn Ewers over Kyle McCord. Um, and Milrow is still kind of that kind of wild card, right? Like, what's he going to do? Is he one that may slip to the Steelers as well? Um, I saw some weird posts saying he may end up moving to like a receiver scat back type thing, and I'm like, okay, let's stop. He can still throw a football. Um,
hmm
and I even saw some Broncos fans saying that they would be okay if Sean Payton were to take him and turn him into Taysom Hill. Like, come on, guys, let's quit playing like that. Um, do
yeah.
you have any? Do you have any thoughts on Jalen Milroe, or maybe even dive in more on your thoughts on Dylan Gabriel?
So with Jalen, I don't think he is a bad QB, not at all, and I don't think he should be switched to any other position. It's very clear that he is a QB. He was made for that position. I think he's going to be fine there. The problem is, what system does he fit into?
Right, right.
Especially with the teams that are like desperately in need of quarterbacks. There a lot of them run different systems than what he's used to. So it's like, one, do they have a competent enough offensive coordinator that can design an offense around him? And two, how good is he going to grasp it? Because that's the other thing people forget to look at too is, they have stellar careers in college and they come to the NFL and they have a hard time grasping it. And that there's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes you just kind of have to like dumb it down for them. So the thing is this: I have to see what he can do in an actual NFL scheme to be like, yeah, Milroe is going to be someone to look out for. And then as far as Dylan Gabriel goes, again, I think he just gets often overlooked because of who's in the class with him. I do think Jackson Dart is definitely better than him, and like you said, I agree with you. I think he's going to be like Bo Nix, but I think he's really good. He commands that offense, and you can see the confidence. Like when he's behind the line, he's under center, in shotgun. He just has so much confidence in his play, and it gets often overlooked because of what Shadur Sanders is doing, and Cam Ward, and Jalen Milroe. Jackson Dart. He just kind of snuck out of there, and entered the conversation like later on in the year. That's when people started talking about him, and then Dylan Gabriel just kind of got left behind. So again, I think you need a confident QB. You need someone that's going to be able to like get in the offense and take full responsibility and just drive the offense down the field. And I think Dylan Gabriel is excellent at that. I think he's a good leader. The team is obviously behind him. The coaching staff is behind him, and I think he would flourish in an offense that needs a strong leader.
Yeah, no, I agree. I like Dylan Gabriel. I think you're not wrong, just the class that he's in. But I still think it's that whole size thing, right? You hear it every year, some way, shape, or form of quarterbacks, whether it's hand size, it's your height, or you're too small, or something like that. Because there's no doubt he can, like you said, he can run an offense. He throws a really good football, right? He's been accurate. Oregon's been producing some really good quarterbacks. You can say Dylan Gabriel might not be quote unquote Oregon, but that's where he's coming from. Um, so I do like Dylan Gabriel. I think I don't want to say he's going to be a steal, but he's going to be that guy that may not be this year, but like 4 years down the road, when he finally gets an opportunity somewhere, you're going to be like, oh shit, this was a really good quarterback that we kind of passed on.
So that brings me to my next
Yeah,
kind of
I was.
question.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So that does bring me to my next question, and you can answer it after your thought. Um, of these quarterbacks, maybe in the top 5 to 6 range, right? Like 5 to 6 be quarterbacks. How many of these guys do you think are starting in the NFL in maybe 2 or 3 years?
I would probably say I would say at least three of them will probably get starting jobs within the next 3 years. Milroe, I don't think he's going to be a starter anytime soon. I mean, unless someone gets injured, I don't know. I'm not sure about him. And this is a very hard class to kind of like gauge that on, just because I think we talked about it a few shows before. None of us are really sold on these guys.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah.
I'm not really sold on. Yeah, I'm not really sold on him. Um, so it's very hard to gauge it. I'd say probably in the next 2 or 3 years, I could see Milroe maybe becoming a starter. I could see Gabriel getting his shot, which is where my thought was going to come in. I can see him being like a little. I don't want to say the same level as Pat Mahomes, but kind of like the same story where he sat behind Alex Smith for a year, and then the next year Alex Smith goes to Washington, Mahomes takes over, and he's never looked back. He may not have the same stat line, but I can see something like that happen in Gabriel's trajectory. But it's so hard to just again. I don't want to be biased because of my own opinions, but like it's really hard to gauge any of them really starting in anytime soon. Maybe Cam Ward. I think he would get the start off the bat. Shadur probably might get a start off the bat. Who knows? But yeah, I would just say in the next 2 to 3 years, you might see a few of them get their chance.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, one thing that we should have talked about at the beginning was Russell Wilson going to the Giants, Jameis Winston going to the Giants. Shadur Sanders has been mocked a lot to the Giants. There's no guarantee that he's even starting year one, right? I think if whoever's drafted number one by Tennessee, they're probably starting year one. I think Tennessee's done with Will Levis. I don't think they want anything to do with Will Levis anymore. And I could be wrong on that. But that's kind of what I'm getting indications of. They're probably done with Will Levis. So again, if that leaves the Giants, Shadur goes there. Does he beat out Russ? Does he beat out Jameis? Not with them paying Russell Wilson what they are paying him. I mean, yeah, maybe 10 mil for a backup, but up to 21 mil with incentives. Yeah, I still think again, Dayball's job's on the line. I think he's gonna be very, very, very careful with who he selects there. Then you can look at Cleveland. I don't think Cleveland's gonna go quarterback. They could. My thought is they may be leaning defense and trying to maybe trade for Kirk Cousins. So again, that's just kind of my thought, bro. You have
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and do my top five real quick because the new name's gonna enter the chat. Uh, Also, it's probably gonna be the most wild top five to begin with. Because I'm not thinking day one, right? I'm thinking long. If I'm drafting a quarterback, I want long-term franchise quarterback in mind, right? So my first quarter, I'm taking Jackson Dart. That's who I want when I'm thinking 8 years down the road. That's who I want leading my team. Out of these, uh, I will take Cam Ward second, um, just because kind of just who's left in the class. But Jackson Dart, Cam Ward, Shadur Sanders. I do like Dylan Gabriel fourth. And then my fifth one is actually going to be Louisville's quarterback, Tyler. I don't know, it's Show.
another
Uh,
show.
I just like his size. I think he's kind of like what you said with Dylan Gabriel, just under the radar, mostly because he went to Louisville, right? Not a bad football school, but outside of kind of when they're dominating, nobody really thinks about him. But I just like his size, his arm talent. He's someone who I think um, he's obviously not going to go first round, maybe not even second round. But if one of those, like the Steelers get him in a third round, I think he could end up being the best quarterback in the draft. Uh, I like his size, his IQ, his arm talent. He's overlooked. Hopefully, he's kind of that guy who is going to go sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth out of the quarterbacks. Maybe that puts that kind of like Amon-Ra St. Brown type chip on his shoulder, where he remembers them all, and that kind of drives him. So I like him as my number five. Um, the quote unquote sleeper of my quarterbacks, I guess, but I'm really high on him.
Yeah, and I guess if I were to pick a sleeper out of this class, I'd go with Quinn Ewers just based on the system he ran at Texas. Um, Again, it's a crapshoot, right? Like you don't know. Um, but again, I think with this class, just because you're not necessarily taken in the first round doesn't mean you can't start. We've seen quarterbacks do it in the past. I was listening to a guy on the radio this morning who said Shadur Sanders could end up having an Aaron Rodgers like first round, right? Where he's just falling, 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 falling. And then, maybe one of these teams with an older quarterback may say, come on, we'll take you. And, or maybe a team trades up one or two spots to get him. But again, I think it goes back to what you were kind of saying earlier with the distractions. They were talking about Shadur Sanders and Cam Ward, and Cam Ward said he's just trying to play football, and Shadur Sanders was trying to collect checks, like and make commercials and do all this other stuff. Well, if I'm Brian Dayball, if I'm one of these coaches who's putting my job this is the year my job's on the line. That's not necessarily something I'm trying to tie my basically career to, because it's not guaranteed that you're getting rehired for a head coaching spot if you don't get this right. So again, attitude and appearance is everything, and whether people want to think or not, yes, the talent may be there, but I think we're in a day and age now where franchises are multi-billion-dollar industry. Like this is a money maker, right? Like they're not just gonna get you to get you. Like this is they will. It's a cutthroat league, essentially. And there's always that one guy who kind of slips in the first round, and he could be one of those.
Yeah, I can see that. I kind of like where you're going with Quinn Ewers too. I do think he's a sleeper. And one of the things I looked up about him is like his size. I'm not comparing him to Josh Allen's skill level any way, shape, or form, but he's kind of got the same build as Josh Allen does. And Josh Allen is a very hard QB to bring down, especially when he gets into open space just because of his size, and that's something a lot of teams need, like those shifty, elusive quarterbacks that they take the hits and they keep rolling, they fight for those yards. And I think Quinn Ewers would deliver that to almost any offense he's in.
Yeah, bro. Do you have anything else on the quarterbacks?
No, I just to show how crazy kind of quarterbacks from college to the NFL go, right? You have Will Howard who led a national championship team, right? Like
He could also be a sleeper, like a fifth or sixth round guy.
I'm still not sold on him as a thrower of the football quite
Right.
yet, but
Yeah.
it just shows so we enjoy college football so much, but when it comes to becoming like a draft prospect and kind of one of the elite kind of prospects, it really has nothing to do about like you're winning national championships or anything, right? Like Will Howard outside of the Michigan game was pretty dominant for Ohio State. Now I know you're surrounded with talent. That helps a little bit, right? Like if you go to the Browns, they probably have less talent than Ohio State. But with that being said, it's surprising that a guy like that, um, not necessarily being in the top 4 or 5, but isn't kind of right at the top of that next tier, just given the success he had at a big time program and the winning he did. So I'm not a big Will Howard fan myself, but I'm also not a hater. Like I think he should probably be
He had one of the top receivers and then two top five running backs in a pretty decent offensive line. So how does that translate, right? Like you just never know.
Yeah.
exactly. But you also watch him like outside of the Michigan game, his playmaking or his decision making was pretty good. And kind of what you said, like he kind of has a little thicker Josh Allen style, right? Obviously, way lesser of a passer, but when it comes to being able to bring down running ability, like he's a big boy. So I'm not quite ready to put him in that sleeper range because he's one I'm really on the fence about, like an NFL quarterback. But I think seeing where he ends up and where he goes is actually kind of one of the bigger quarterback things I'm watching for the draft.
Yeah, and again, the way he presented himself in the playoff, I think that may have actually boosted him just a little bit as far as like Will Howard goes. That is, um, but again, he's going to have to go to the right system. He honestly could end up being a guy that you may use as like a gadget guy because he can run the football and he's really good mobile. Like when he was at K State, we obviously had a chance to watch plenty of Will Howard when he was at K State and they played KU. He ran the football really well. He had some good talent around him there. It's just K State, Ohio State. Obviously, it's going to elevate you up a lot more, especially when you have a true freshman receiver who could probably be a top 5 pick now in the NFL. And you have Ebicum, some of those other guys that were around him. And then we're getting ready to jump into the running backs. And he had two guys who could easily be top 15 draft picks if the draft was kind of falling into their favor. Do you guys have anything else more on quarterbacks before we jump over to the running backs? Nope. All right,
No,
so
I think we hit everything.
yeah, I think so. So let's go over to the top 5 running backs real quick. I posted it again yesterday. About and it's a simple question still. Bucky Brooks put out his top 5 running backs, and I'll read them starting with number 1, obviously Aston Genty. Number 2 was Omarion Hampton. Number 3, Trevion Henderson. Number 4 was Quinshawn Judkins. Number 5 was Dylan Sampson. Okay, so those were the 5, and then I just posed a simple question similar to what I did with the quarterbacks. So our friends over at the three guys 6 balls NFL podcast, they like Judkins over Henderson. I do tend to agree a little bit on that, um, and I also commented back to them saying I think Judkins could end up being the best running back in this class, just based on my thoughts. And then our friends Ohio Sports Talk, who shout out to those guys. They've been kind of one of our day one guys. They think the Browns need to actually grab one of these 5 guys. I don't necessarily think it needs to be in the first round, and they're saying at 33, so that means their second round pick. You got to grab one of those guys. Um, so, what's your guys' initial thoughts? And I think we can kind of go with this. You can include Genty. Cool. He is obviously heading. He's obviously the best running back. Um, Matt, I know you have quite a bit of thoughts on running backs because you and I a few weeks ago, once we started watching some of the uh, college highlights, we were starting to talk running backs immediately because we knew that's what Denver needed after watching that terrible playoff game against Buffalo, and we knew you got to get a running back. So give us your initial thoughts on these running backs,
Hmm.
the top five, and then we'll wait for the sleepers until after this discussion.
Yeah. So I like the order except for the Henderson Judkins. I would flop them. And the reason I say that is one of the things in Henderson's scouting report that they talked about was his durability. He did take on a lot of injuries. So now again, like you want reliability. You're concerned about your future. You want guys that are going to be able to take the hits, um, and if they get hurt, or if they get hit, they're not going to get hurt, and they don't have glass knees or anything like that. You want a strong running back who can just power up the middle, and then again, that's your season. A lot of people kind of like, I've had a few fans on my page say like, running backs aren't really like a dire need anymore. Like, yeah, they're utilizing your offense, but now it's more prolific in the past, and it's like, you become one dimensional. You're easy to predict, so you need that solid running back to boost your offense. But they only it's only good if they can stay healthy, and that's my concern with Henderson is his health. But as far as his pass blocking, he was rated high at pass blocking. He's a good receiving back. He's explosive, but I think Judkins is overall just the healthier back. He's more explosive. He's got the better vision than the two of them. Genty on top. I'd argue like, well, who did? But I mean, it's impressive to do what he did. Not a lot of running backs have done that in their collegiate career. Marion Hampton, and kind
Yeah,
of
Matt,
like,
you're cutting out a little bit, buddy. So we'll uh we'll let your connection kind of catch up real quick. You're okay, so that's all right. Um, I do like Junkins over Henderson. I actually don't like Henderson in the top 3 or 4. I would put him at number 5. And again, that's not a shot at him. Uh, and Dylan Sampson maybe a little lower for me. I am starting to become more intrigued by Omarion Hampton, and I'm starting to pay more attention to him just for the fact that I'm starting to see Denver kind of as a match for him at 20. It's still taking me a little bit to talk myself into a first round running back um, for Denver, but I know that that's kind of a top priority. And seeing how they didn't make many moves in free agency for a running back, and they still could. I know J.K. Dobbins is still out there, and he's been mentioned a few times to Denver. But yeah, I'm actually good with this list for the most part. There's a few names that I like in the third or fourth rounds, and I think that's just because based on what we've done is we follow the Big 12 a lot, so we know Devin Neal, we know uh, DJ Giddens, Ollie Gordon, Cam Scattaboo, some of those guys,
RJ Harvey.
RJ Harvey. So again, this running back class is so deep that I don't necessarily think that this is a bad top 5, but I honestly don't know if you can really put someone in the top 5 and justify that maybe they're not a top 5 player, right? Like there's so many people that you can put as a top 5 running back. It's kind of just depends on your preference. I could sit here and easily say that Ollie Gordon could be a top 5 NFL running back just based on his running skills, his pass catching. But then you go watch him try to do some pass pro. His pass pro is not very good, but he was also in the same style of offense at Oklahoma State that didn't really require him to do much of that, um, just because they were running gun or they were the air raid, but they were just quick passes, quick things, and all this other stuff. So that's my thoughts. Give me your initial thoughts on the top 5. We won't go into sleepers quite yet.
No, this running back class is loaded, and that's why I think just outside of Genty, I don't know if many people are going to prioritize a first round running back, right? Like with it being so deep, and so many teams are in 2 running back systems anymore anyway. Um, to where I mean we've seen it in recent years, right? Where running backs are um, kind of not prioritized anymore. But yeah, outside of Genty, my second favorite is actually Caleb Johnson from Iowa. Um, I don't know if that's just because I kind of like their style of play, offense, defense across the board anyway. Uh, but I like what he brings to the table. I think what you said earlier is could be a concern with him, just kind of the already wear and tear on a guy who's you know toted the rock as much as he had in his career. Those could be maybe a little red flags. But after that, I do like the Ohio State running backs. I'm with you, guy. I like Judkins over Henderson. Um, he always just felt like he had just a little extra step and burst to me. 'Cause I think they're both really good across the board, right? So now we're splitting hairs. He always just seemed to have that little more explosiveness to him. Um, so that's why I would like him. 5, I actually like Dylan Sampson from Tennessee. He's not someone who's going to come in and be a bell cow. He's going to have to be that change of pace, um, probably like 8 to 12 touches a game kind of guy, just because he is, like 5'8", maybe 200 pounds. Um, but kind of that lightning in a bottle kind of guy, which I like that. And then I'll just go to my sixth rank. Um, nah, I'll save this for sleepers because he's definitely going to fit for sleepers.
And then we got in the chat, they love Johnson too. He carried Iowa's offense. And I did see his stat earlier today. Thank you for the comment as well. Um, Iowa didn't cater to the defense. So he was still one of the top running backs as far as facing stacked boxes, essentially, right? They didn't do anything to adjust anything. They still just got in there, ran him up the middle, and so again, he did carry Iowa's offense. You're absolutely correct. Um, there's a lot of other running backs in this class that I want to touch on as well. Um, but we wouldn't be us if we didn't talk about Devin Neal real quick.
That was going to be
Um,
my sixth rank that I was going to go with.
yeah, so Devin Neal is definitely one of them, and I think Matt had popped off of here, which is fine. He'll get his connection figured out and join us in a second. So let's break down Devin Neal real quick.
Let me ask you real quick, and you can go into detail just because you know, where I'm going with this. But I think my player comp for Devin Neal is Matt Forte. Not great at anything, but really efficient and good at everything. Just give me your thoughts. Is that a fair player comp for you? Do you have a different player comp? Um, and just kind of what you think about that.
So again, now we pulled up on the screen there, three guys, six balls, NFL podcast, Love Johnson. So again, still learning some of these new features here on Riverside. So thanks you guys. Um, yeah, Devin Neal's player comp, Matt Forte is fairly fair. Um, he's just one of those guys where I almost put him as almost like a Le'Veon Bell. Just what kind of watching him. Le'Veon in his prime was one of the better one cut guys. Kind of patient, finding the hole, using his vision. Um, again, Matt Forte was kind of the all around guy, but Bell kind of got involved in the pass game there towards the end as well. Um, yeah, Matt Forte is a fair comp. But again, Devin Neal's kind of a unique runner in the sense of um, just his ability to make guys miss. And I even saw there were people talking about Devin Neal's ability. I think it was Brian Baldinger, and I was watching some Baldy breakdowns as Matt joins us. He's back, but we were just talking about Devin Neal real quick, and his comp being Matt Forte, and again Baldy's breakdowns. I believe it was him was talking about his one cut and his ability to make people miss. I think that's what we kind of enjoyed with Devin Neal. We haven't had a running back kind of like anywhere near Devin Neal's stature. Jake Sharp may end up being one of those that was closest, and Brandon McAnderson back in the day, but neither of those guys, I think, made it or going to be at the level that Devin Neal is. Let's go in state again. DJ Giddens, who again I think is going to be a really good NFL running back.
Yeah,
Um,
he's way down the running back list for what I thought.
and he's a big, like he's a tall guy, so he has long strides. And I know that there were times where when he got the ball and he got going, he was really kind of quick. His pass catching ability was really well. K State's offense doesn't quite fit NFL schemes, but I think in the right system and he doesn't need to be a three down guy. He can come in and get you some short yardage. Um, you know, boom goal line, maybe get you a tough yard or two. DJ Giddens is a guy to also keep kind of an eye on as far as running backs go. One who I thought may have gotten some love last year, but he came back. Um, Ollie Gordon, right? So Oklahoma State kind of went way down, obviously, in what they were able to produce. But Ollie Gordon was one of the best running backs in the country last year, right? He kind of took the downfall, and then we got looking at Neal, doesn't get much more consistent. Let's put that on the screen real quick. Doesn't get much more consistent than that on both a game. That's true. I think we talked mostly during our season about his consistency. We were actually kind of disappointed in how KU would use him sometimes. You'd look up and he'd have 12 carries for like 125, but then they'd go away from it. Uh,
Keeps him fresh. You can add that to another kind of green flag for him, right? I think the one game where we finally saw him get used was senior day against Colorado. Dude had like 50 touches, and we saw what he could do, right? So, um, it's crazy, and that's just how deep this class is, right? Like in his rankings, he's right there with like Trevor Etienne, Donovan Edwards, Taj Brooks, like all these other dudes who are kind of supposed to be good running backs, or at least in previous years they would be very high ranked. So that just goes to show how stacked this running back class is. That even cleared bottom of the list, you have Georgia running back, couple Michigan running backs, and Devin Neal. I think there's going to be a lot of steals for running backs in this draft, with Giddens and Neal being two of them.
yeah, and what did they have ETN at?
ETN doesn't give player rank; it gives overall rank, and it's 197. Uh,
But I think again, you look at the Georgia running backs. I think those guys have had
22.
20. Yeah, and Georgia usually does produce pretty good running backs in the NFL. James Cook, obviously Todd Gurley back in the day, Sony Michelle. So I mean, Georgia has good pedigree at running back. So I
Chubb.
and Nick Chubb, yeah, Nick Chubb, also a name Denver fans could possibly maybe get. Um, let's see, did we get Matt back? We can't. We can't. So he'll keep working on that. He blames the weather. He sent us a message. He blames the weather. So
We've all been there,
we
right? We
we've
just had tornadoes not too long ago,
yeah
so
we have. So let's stay on the running backs real quick. Let's go back to Ollie Gordon, one of the best running backs in the country last year. Oklahoma State kind of had a complete 360, but he still produced. I did watch some senior game tape. He struggled on the pass blocking. I think there was one of the defensive ends that planted him. He's not a small guy by any means, but again, you can't put that on tape. You got to be able to pass block. But again, Ollie Gordon, I still think could be a very, very valuable running back as far as it goes in the NFL. Kind of your thoughts on Ollie?
yeah, I mean, the downfall of not even really him, just Oklahoma State in general, it's probably a downfall that needs to be studied, truth be told, even though we all know it's kind of tied to, quarterback play. But um, I he's someone who I just certain game tape you watch and you're like, he can be a dominant RB1. I think if you just look at what you've done for me recently type deal, you're looking at probably the second fiddle in a pretty good running back duo. Um, Short yardage, but you nailed it. He wasn't asked a lot to pass block and really pass catch at Oklahoma State. And I know those are jobs like 2 and 3 of a running back. Your first job is to run the ball. But in today's league, if you can't pass block, the biggest investment for a team's quarterback. So they need all the help they can get to protect him. And if you can't do it, you kind of see it with Ollie Gordon. You kind of slide a little bit because there's no denying his talent, his ability to run the football. You don't rush for over 2,000 yards in a season and not know how to run a football. Um, but if you can't pass block, that will send you plummeting down draft boards.
Who's your sleeper?
I mean, Devin, you know,
Yeah, I
I
mean,
mean, just because where he's ranked, right? And I know that's kind of a product of just how deep this class is. But if I have to go non KU, I'm going RJ Harvey. I always kind of like those little muscle bowling ball type running backs. I know they're kind of a dying breed, but um, you know, sleeper. I'm not thinking of a coming in to be a Derrick Henry. I'm thinking coming in and being like a Jalen Warren. Called upon, and you do well when you do it. So yeah, our guys, 3 guys, 6 balls podcast. talking about the 40 time really hurt him. I agree with the RB2 who splits carries. If he gets a chance to carry the tote as the primary RB1, maybe sees the opportunity. But I agree, RB2. But sleepers RJ Harvey, quality RB2, goal line guy, um, kind of the opposite of Ollie Gordon. Real physical, real tough, brick wall. Um, kind of one of those guys you want in the locker room too.
Yeah, no, and it sucks that we can't get Matt on here. His connection's still not well. He and I started talking a few weeks back about running backs. After, again, like we said earlier, after the Broncos game, and we started talking about needs for Denver. Obviously, running back was top of our list, and he brought up a name, Brashard Smith, SMU. Uh, and it sucks because we were talking about this a few weeks ago, and now I'm starting to see his name get mentioned more uh, on shows and in the media. Um, but I promise you, I'm here to tell you guys that Matt was kind of on this one, kind of right off the bat, uh, and someone that he liked as a running back in the NFL. You know, he SMU kind of was one of those weird teams where they change conferences. They go to the ACC, but then they do well enough to make the playoff, and then. But he was actually a bright spot of that offense. Um,
Yeah, I mean, him and Jennings were the reason for a turnaround. I mean, it's a team thing, right? But you kind of have those one or two players you can point to, and he was one of them.
a 4.3940, right? So he and it
He
just
fits modern.
he fits
Yeah.
it, and you get him out in open space. He can do so many different things, and what he's able to do with the football. I don't. I'm not going to put him in the first round category. I don't even know if I'm going to put him in the second round category. I would say mid third and on, and that's kind of the spots that we love talking about. Yes, there's always those guys that are going to be first round guys. That's not kind of who we try to focus on. I just like the top 5 lists. So I was kind of like, eh, you know, but let's kind of do a deeper dive into maybe those third, fourth, fifth round running backs. You could even say like an Isaiah Pacheco type.
Seventh
Um,
round.
yeah, like a seventh round guy. Um, I don't know if I'm not high on Cam Scatterbo.
See, I was about to bring up two names, and he was one of it. I was going to ask your feelings on Mr. Scatty Boo. Yeah, so just give us a little dive onto that.
And I know in these guys in the chat, we talked about it on our Instagram chat the other night about Cam Scatterbo. I'm not high on Cam Scatterbo, and it's not that he's a terrible runner. It's just the wear and tear. Uh, it's the scheme. It's there's different factors that go into it. Um, is he going to be? He could be a decent NFL running back, guys. Don't shoot me on that one. Um,
See, I think his ceiling is just like like a Gus Edwards. You'll get the job done, but is it sexy? Is that who you want long term? Probably not.
yeah,
But he's going to run people over, going to get you excited a little bit. Um, he's one dude who you would like to have in the locker room, right? Set the tone kind of guy. Maybe one hell of a special teams guy.
well, I know that was brought up that it was a Cowboys pick. Maybe him going to Dallas, just getting that toughness into that offense. Uh, and I guess maybe when I was reading it the other night, I didn't really take that into consideration. Yeah, he probably would be a good fit for the Cowboys and what they need. But the Cowboys are a soft team now. I don't even know if he would be able to kind of help them in what they're trying to do quite yet. But Matt, do we have you back?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you, buddy. Nice. So I was just telling them not too long ago. I was telling them that 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, maybe even a little bit longer than that, we already talked about Brashad Smith, SMU guy, which sucks because he was kind of on our radar. But now you're starting to see his name brought up more in the media and on other shows. But I wanted everyone that was listening to know that you kind of were on this first, as far as maybe like a name of a guy to maybe keep an eye on. So give us your thoughts on Smith.
Yeah, one of the things I really liked about Smith was how versatile he is. He is a very reliable running back. He's a good speed back. He's explosive. He's elusive. He's shifty. But you can also put him in that receiver role as well. He played wide receiver before. He was a running back, and then they switched him. So I could really see him being utilized in the way that Pete Carroll used Percy Harvin in Seattle. That same role. as a punt return, kick returner. You utilize him as a receiver, put him at running back. There's so much you can do with a guy like Rashard Smith, and I'm kind of happy his name's getting in there because I think he deserves to be in that conversation. He is a reliable running back. He is a good running back, and he brings versatility to an offense. If you're one of those offensive coordinators that likes to mix up how you run your scheme, he'd be perfect for your offense because you can do so much with him. Hey, is he going to go out in the flats? It would make it hard to predict. Is he going to go out and be a receiving back in the flats? Are you going to line him up in the slot? Are you going to run with him? How do you prepare for that? So I think if you're looking to be unpredictable in your offense, he'd be a great addition in your offense.
Yeah, and we'll get back to Smith here in a second, but we did have another. This goes back to your comment, bro, about Scadaboo. So Scadaboo needs to be in a shared running back system because of how he runs and the wear and tear. Bro, that was kind of your thoughts. So kind of that dive more into that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't even know if it's kind of an RB2 situation, right? I think it's going to have to be very situational running back. Um, I just I He runs too hard. You kind of see it with Pacheco now, just after a couple years of his running style, right? Like he just can't stay healthy. You can get away with it in college a little bit, but in the NFL, all 11 dudes on the other side of you hit significantly hard. Um, so I agree, definitely a shared running back system, and maybe a really shared running back system to where he's situational. He's what the Carson Steele was for the Chiefs this year. You only see him in short yardage, kind of special situations, and then you really put him on special teams, even returning, right? Him coming full speed on a kick return, that might hurt a little bit, but yeah, I agree. His wear and tear already can't be good. Um, Add in his style, that's only going to make it worse.
What about the Ravens? Like, do you think the Ravens would be a fit for Scadaboo?
I think I think if Henry goes down, it would still be like a Justice Hill backfield.
See, I think
But then like they would still use Scatterboo at like the goal line like they would Derrick Henry or short yardage.
and I think they kind of like that kind of like lightning thunder thing, right? Have
Or
Derrick Henry into Justice Hill into I'm just thinking of like Ricard, Scadaboo, Derrick Henry, Lamar, and that little. I mean,
like Full House.
full house,
Yeah.
right? Matt, what's your thoughts on maybe Scadaboo with the Ravens?
I can see it. Like like Austin said, like if Henry goes down, Scadaboo would be, a very solid backup. I definitely see him utilized on like third and short situations of those goal line situations. Um, but yeah, he definitely needs to be in a 1-2 system, and I think sitting behind Derrick Henry would be good for him. So
Yeah,
I could see it.
I'm gonna pick another AFC North team. I think he'd be perfect with the Steelers. They're down Najee Harris. I believe it's Jalen Warren's probably backfield now. But now you get a guy like Scatterboo to get the tough yardage to ease up on Jalen Warren, right? Because he's also a hard runner given his size. You get a guy like Scatterboo to take some of that punishment away. I mean, you already got DK and Pickens on the outside, so life may still be a little easier on Warren between the tackles. But sitting behind a guy like Warren and just taking some of the wear and tear off of him. And Scatterboo kind of feels like a Steelers guy, right? Like I'm just gonna run through you and see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, he
Like a
does.
Jerome Bettis kind of dude.
Yeah.
Absolutely, that's actually that's really almost the same, right? But it's kind of like we always know Pittsburgh has a type, but it's also one of those things where this draft is so deep at certain positions, it wouldn't surprise anybody. Even if you do have a running back, it doesn't hurt to grab you a handcuff or maybe even a third, right? I know I've been seeing a lot of people say Broncos could double dip on the defensive line, go first round, or second round with it. I don't like that idea, but it's a deep enough class to where they do. So now, Matt, Broncos question: do you take Hampton at 20, or do you wait until maybe the second or third round and go Rashad Smith?
Honestly, I would probably take Hampton at 20, and then I would go and get Smith. I would get Smith in the later round. I would get him in the third. I would like to have Smith, but Hampton, I like Hampton. I would take Hampton at 20. And I mean, if I'm really given the choice, I would take Judkins at 20, just
Yes.
because I think Judkins is. So a lot of people, what they tend to forget is, so Hampton's a bigger back, Scadaboo's a bigger back. They're good up the middle. They are not good at bouncing to the outside and cutting the edge. You know, they're not good at turning the God, what's the phrase? I'm like turning the angle, getting that angle, because they're
corner,
so big.
yeah.
It's hard for them to, cut in the corner. Judkins can do that, and Denver needs that all-around back, not just a speed back or a power back. They need that all-around back. So personally, I would take Judkins over Hampton. If Judkins, if they don't go for him and they get Hampton, I wouldn't be upset. But I would like to have Judkins or Hampton, and definitely Smith. Smith is someone I think Denver really, really should utilize.
So let me ask you guys this: there's no love for Caleb Johnson here, just given like I think he's better than everyone we've named except Genty.
Yeah, and I think
Like the Mark Ingram for Sean Payton.
that's what I was getting. I think Sean Payton has a type, right? He's gonna want the Mark Ingram guy, or he's gonna want an Alvin Kamara type. It's not that. I think he thought Javonte was gonna turn into a Mark Ingram type, but Javonte just never got over the injury and came back the way he wanted to. McLaughlin is definitely a smaller version, which is kind of like a Darren Sproles, essentially, what Sean Payton wants. And I don't think Sean Payton's fully confident in wanting to use McLaughlin that much. I don't think Caleb Johnson in the first round's out of the question. I just don't know if that's kind of where Sean would lean as far as 20 goes for Johnson.
No, I get it, and that's kind of asking Denver fans. Like, I still think Judkins and even maybe the other Ohio State Ryan Henderson, like some of these dudes are still probably ranked higher than Caleb Johnson. That was more of like with my rankings, me thinking he was second best on this list. How would you feel if draft night that was the pick at 20 type deal?
Honestly, I wouldn't care, right? Just for the simple fact of I know it's a position of need. And we've talked about it multiple times with you on here. You and I both sat here and said, it may not be the sexy pick at the time, but we're going to trust the process right now because they've done everything that they've done has worked out as Sean Payton's kind of visioned it out to be, right? So if Sean Payton goes out there and drafts a running back at 20, Johnson, Hampton, Judkins, whoever, shit, he can go out there and draft DJ Giddens at 20, and I'm going to believe and buy into the system of what he's trying to do, right? Because everyone felt like he needed to justify drafting Bo Nix at 12 last year, and he didn't have to justify anything, right? He knew what he wanted. He got it. He's got his system. And he's one of those guys, there's no one who trusts Sean Payton more than Sean Payton, right? He believes his system, and he really doesn't care what anyone thinks. So again, and that Matt, and I'm not going to speak for you on that, but I just know that in the conversations that we've had, we've always said that no matter what the Broncos end up doing move-wise, we're going to trust the process, and we're going to trust that Payton and Payton are doing what they want to do with the team.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely think we both agreed on that. We've been agreeing on that for the longest time. And, if you look back at, they talked about Sean Payton drafting Bo Nix. They talked to him a few days ago about it. And he was like, look, Bo Nix didn't have a good combine. He did not throw well. But he's like, and I didn't make my decision at the combine. I went to his pro day and I gave him some routes at his pro day. And that's when I knew, like, that's the guy that we want. So, that's why you have these top 30 meets. That's why you have these, formal meetings with players after the combine before the draft, because now you want to see, like, let's give you certain looks. Let's see how you handle this. Let's see how you handle this type of pressure. So Sean Payton is very methodical. He knows what he's doing. And, I trust it. It's worked out for us so far. First year he took over, best record that we've had since, 2016. The next year we make the playoffs. So, I mean, it's slowly but surely leading in the right direction that Broncos fans have been waiting for forever, so I trust this process. I trust what
me and you are going to keep running the campaign of Denver's going to continuously get better. You and I are going to lead the campaign of telling Bronco fans to chill the fuck out, calm down, relax, believe in the system process. We don't all get to sit here and watch our team go to 3 straight Super Bowls, right? Like,
I also had to watch my team get their dicks beat in twice in a Super Bowl. So, like, it's not all like sunshine and rainbows over here, guys. Like, you don't have to join us that fast.
But the refs.
but the ref, right?
The field. Oh,
But we're gonna dive into this more next week as well, because and even we got some Raider fans coming on soon.
Yikes.
So we're gonna dive into some Raider stuff. But I mean, I'm not gonna sleep on the Raiders right now either. Um, I think the Raiders are gonna be
No.
in a good position with Pete Carroll, and I'm gonna again sit here and say that Pete Carroll's gonna give the Raiders 3 to 4 more wins just based on coaching. So hopefully they don't draft very well. But Pete's track record says he does really well in the draft. Um, so again, the AFC West is going to it's going to be a fun ride. It really is. And I'm going to continuously beat the drum to try to get more AFC West people on here as well as we get closer to the season to try to have a round table so we can all sit here and talk shit on each other and make fun of each other's teams where the Chiefs are this, Broncos are this, Raiders are this, Chargers are this. But I'm also going to start a campaign of trying to get Bo Nix on my podcast. I saw he did a podcast with a couple of guys and was doing stadium food rankings. Did you see he picked number 1 popcorn?
Mhm.
What's your number 1 stadium food?
I did, yeah. Oh man, I gotta go popcorn. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna go nachos.
Yep, that's
I'm gonna
you
go
looked at me
nachos.
immediately.
I did.
Yeah, I'm a little slut for stadium nachos, man. I don't care what stadium, just give them to me.
We went to a Blues game a few weeks ago,
Yeah.
Super Bowl weekend, and this guy was like, "I don't care
Mhm.
what I had, I just need nachos."
We had a full ass meal before going in too. Like I
Yep.
was already full on our dinner, and I'm like, I'm still buying nachos.
Right.
I'm
The
gonna post
stadium
that question.
nachos, like the chips and the cheese.
It's different.
It's
Right.
different, man.
Stadium chips and cheese that just hits different. Yeah.
Yep. Well, and
It's
we went to, when we were in Kansas, we went to a lot of Royals games, and they always had really delicious like barbecue nachos. So like you just get some like pulled pork nachos, and a lot of years that was so much better than actually watching the Royals. So like that was why we were going to games. So yeah, no, I'm with you on nachos.
all right, guys. You
Yeah.
guys have any
You
more?
can't fuck with nachos. So.
No,
Right. You got anything else before we?
yeah,
Nope.
I wanted to get this name out there. Just we kind of went down the road of Scattaboo, Scattybo, whatever Skittles, for kind of sleeper running backs. I'm gonna throw a name out there. He may go undrafted, but I'm still a really big fan of him, and I think he's a really good running back. But Kalel Mullings, like it was supposed to be Donovan Edwards' backfield for Michigan, and like this dude just kept producing and being better and better and better. I like the guy. I know he's going to be down there if not undrafted, but I kind of like what he brings to the table. He comes power offense. He runs between the tackles. He's explosive. He had all their big plays running the ball. It seemed like this year. So that's who my deep sleeper would be. I was going to mention him, but we definitely went down the Scatty rabbit hole. So I just want to get his name out there. I might just be a Big Ten fan apparently.
That's kind of what it sounds like. Matt, anything else from you before we end this show tonight?
No, just hey, let's get ready for the draft, man. It's gonna be a fucking wild ride, and I'm looking forward to it. And nachos all the way, number 1 pick.
Nachos, number 1 pick from
Nachos.
these two guys. I mean, I'd probably get on board with that. I mean, yeah, I mean, you can't go wrong with the nachos and a good beer. So, again, I want to thank everybody in who's commented on stuff on Instagram. The 36 podcast guys. You guys have been fantastic. You guys started the group chat for some of us sports podcasters, and we've kind of had some nice advice has been shared on there. We're trying to build this. Our followers are up. We're over 750 now. So again, please keep sharing with your friends. Let's get to 1,000 by the end of the year. We've talked about doing giveaways. We're going to start coming up with some team merch. So, whoever could be our 1,000th follower, we may reach out and say, you want a pack of baseball cards, or do you want, maybe your favorite team is who's a neutral team? Maybe you're a KU fan and you want a KU jersey. We'll get you a KU jersey for kind of a giveaway for that. So
If it's Matt and he wants a Bo Nix jersey, well, I guess you're gonna get a Bo Nix jersey, right?
there you go. So again, we're looking at things that we're trying to
Absolutely.
do. We want to improve. We're trying to get big time guests. Matt obviously is a regular. He'll continue to be a regular, but now we want to build our guest list. Drew Code Sports Talks coming on with us next week, along with Matt, who will be back with us next week we'll talk some more sports, and maybe it's obviously draft season, so we're gonna talk more draft. We may do like receivers and tight ends. I'll talk with all those guys in the weeks or so. So again, find us on Instagram. Come follow us. Get us to 1,000. We're on X. Come find us on X. Woody Page followed us today. Thanks, Woody. If you want to come on the show, holler at us. We've around the horn. We watched that growing up, so that's pretty awesome. So again, I thank you all for helping us build our channel, and we're going to continue to build, and we look forward to growing with everybody, and we really
And bringing everyone along for the ride, right?
bringing
We're
everyone
all
along.
in this together.
We're all in it together. Much love to you guys. We'll talk to you guys
Yep.
next week. Matt, we'll see you as well next week. Thank you for joining us again tonight. Make sure you guys go find him on Instagram, OC News 365. I will tag him in it so you guys can go follow him. Great content. He is not just the Broncos, but he does AFC West stuff as well. So he's a good football guy in general. So we can't thank him enough. So we'll talk to you guys next week. Good night. The weather, huh?
Bro, Camp Pendleton just